Hey guys, this is Pete from MyJewelryBench.com, and today what we're going to do is we're going to change the mainspring on an Illinois Bunn special. This mainspring broke on this recently serviced watch. You can see I'm removing the two case screws now so we can decase the watch. First I take the two case screws, put them aside so we don't lose them. We're going to take the movement out of the frame. Working on a foam pad here, so we're not going to do any damage to the watch. The next thing we're going to do is remove the ratchet wheel on the main bridge. Once the ratchet wheel is removed, we're going to remove the main wheel. Oh, don't forget this main wheel is reverse thread, so be careful. You're going to turn it counterclockwise to tighten it and clockwise to loosen it. Here we're pulling out that main wheel right now. Put those parts aside. The next step is to remove the main bridge. There are 3 screws in an Illinois Bunn special that hold the main bridge down, so we're going to remove and loosen those 3 screws. This is the first of the 3 here. And they are all normal threads. When you're done loosening those 3 screws, you're going to use tweezers to just gently lift up on that main bridge. It looks like I have 1 screw that's still threaded in there. We're going to loosen that up a little bit. Once you get the bridge moved aside, you're going to grab the mainspring barrel and gently lift that out. Put the watch movement aside. The next step is to open the barrel, and you're going to open it. It only comes apart from one side. You're going to tap on the side with the threaded screw, and you're going to pop that cap off. I'll use a mallet here, a rawhide mallet, pops that cover off without an issue. And we'll flip it open, take a look at the spring. And of course, if you look closely, you can see that it's broken. And when I pull it out, you're going to definitely know that the spring's broken. So the rest of the spring has to be gently removed. You don't want to just kind of pull it out and let it fly around the room. So you'll notice that I use my hands to get the spring out in a manner that doesn't let parts fly across the room, because if you're not careful, that spring lets loose, it'll make that barrel kind of go anywhere. Once the spring is unwound, I'll put it aside and we'll take a look at the barrel and the parts for the barrel, make sure that everything's good. Now I'm going to examine the type of spring that we have here. If you look closely, you'll notice that the spring itself, the end piece of the spring, has 2 little tabs. It's called a T-bar end or a T-end, and we have to match the spring to the width, tension, and then make sure that we have a T-spring that's going back into the movement. So if you have these springs, you're going to grab the one that fits, otherwise you're going to have to order it, so make sure that you get the right spring for that. Now here I'm inserting the new mainspring into the watch winder, or the mainspring winder, and then I'm going to coil it into the winder so that we can place the bottom of that into the mainspring barrel. So you're going to gently wind this tight. I've pre-oiled the spring, and I always do that, and I recommend that when you get a new spring, you make sure it's clean and then pre-oil it. Just put a little oil on your fingers and rub it on both sides. So now I'm going to insert the mainspring winder into the barrel in the correct position. There is little holes on both the top and bottom of the barrel, the cap and the barrel itself, and you're going to put those little T-ends into those 2 little holes. First into the barrel, you'll see it'll only go in one place, and then it'll lock itself in position. The little button on the mainspring winder on the top of it, you're going to push that down gently while holding the T-end, and I'm using a screwdriver to hold it in, and when you do that, it'll snap in place. Once it snaps in place, the spring is wound inside the barrel in its correct position. So there you can see that's the T-end on the bottom of the barrel, and then the center of the coil. Sometimes you might have to tighten that up a little bit depending on the mainspring winder you use. You're going to make sure that it's coiled enough so that the pinion for the barrel lines it in place. Here you can see I'm just putting some oil onto the mainspring just to make sure that it's got a good amount of spring oil in it. And this spring oil is very lucid. It works good. I've used it for years. It lasts a very, very long time. Now, the little pinion goes back in a certain position, and you can see it's a little loose, so I'm going to pull that back out and tighten the coil part of the spring so that we can make sure the locking rim of that pinion catches onto the center of the spring. And it just takes a little bit of squeezing here. These are strong springs. They're big. You could break them, but chances are they're not like a wristwatch spring. They don't break very easy. Once you get that coiled in pretty good, then we'll put that pinion back in to the barrel. Make sure that it locks into place. Once we're happy with how it fits, I can then put the cap back on. So you're going to put the cap in the right position. Got it upside down, so we'll put it back in. You see the little notch there for the other T end, the top part of the T end. So you want to make sure that little notch is touching the T end, and that little T-bar part comes through that little notch. And then I'm going to use these little parallel pliers to just kind of squeeze the cap back into position. It'll snap in. These are well machined parts, and you'll feel that cap, or you'll actually hear the cap snap back in once it's in place. There you go. That barrel has a new spring in it. It's oiled, cleaned, and ready to go back into the watch. Grab the movement, get it back onto your parts tray or your parts pad. Grab some tweezers, and let's get that installed back into the watch. I'm using a stand for the movement just to make sure that it's off the pad. And you're going to grab the barrel, put it back in position. Make sure that the main wheel is in its correct position. We'll grab the main bridge, put that back on, and we're just going to check that the barrel comes through the main bridge, and so does the main wheel, and comes through without any problems, that the main bridge seats into the movement. And now I'll tighten up the screws. So again, you're going to tighten these screws up. You're not going to tighten them fully. You're just going to tighten them a little bit to hold the bridge down, and then you're going to recheck the fit so that we don't do any damage to any jewels in this watch. Once you're satisfied with the fit, then you can go ahead and tighten the 3 bridge screws down without a problem. Once the main bridge is tightened in, then we have to prepare ourselves to insert the main wheel, and we have to insert the ratchet wheel. So both of those wheels will be installed next. I'm just double checking all the screws, make sure they're all tight. Here I'm going to grab the main wheel. I'm going to put that in position. I'm going to grab the screw for it, and don't forget this screw is reverse thread. Typically what I do once I've inserted the screw like that and it's loose, I turn it about halfway clockwise, and then I make sure it seats well. Once it's seated into the threads, then I will tighten it up by turning the screw counterclockwise. Now we'll grab the ratchet wheel. Now this wheel, you'll notice on the barrel pinion there is a square opening, and there is a square hole in the ratchet wheel. So this is how that piece locks itself onto the movement prior to the screw being turned down. So I'm just using my finger to seat it in its square position. Once it's seated, I'll grab the screw for it, and we'll tighten down the ratchet screw. The screw is a normal thread, so it tightens clockwise. Once the screw is tightened, it's actually going to start winding the mainspring. In some cases you'll see that the balance wheel will just take off, and that that's a good sign because that means everything's working good. And if you look at that mainspring being wound just a turn, half a turn, the balance wheel took right off, and it's running really, really well. I'm very impressed with these watches. Illinois Bunn Specials are just phenomenal, phenomenal watches. Now that we have this all assembled, everything's tight, the next step would be to put the watch back into the case frame. So I'm going to grab the frame, and we're going to insert the movement back into the frame. Here I'm just kind of cleaning my fingerprints off of it just a little bit. Again, this watch was recently serviced. I was showing it to a customer a couple days ago and the spring broke, so I wanted to get that repaired. Let's grab the case frame. Insert it back into the frame, the movement into the frame, and we'll grab our 2 case screws. And one at a time we'll insert those into the watch movement. I'm going to tighten these down just a little bit to hold the movement steady. We'll insert the second one, tighten that down. Now when I took this watch apart, I took the hands off and the front bezel so that I could work on the movement. And here I'm just tightening up the 2 case screws, making sure they're holding the movement back in. And we'll put the back cover back in place. This is a screw down back cover, so you're going to get it threaded correctly and then tighten it up. Once that's done, put this back on my bench, grab the hands, and I always start with the hour hand. Obviously you have to put the hour hand on before the minute hand. So put the hour hand onto the hour post, and I'll just push it down using my tweezers. And I'll grab the second hand just to make sure that from the top I see that the watch is still always running. And I'll push that down onto the second hand pinion. Now this is a good time to pull out the lever on this watch. This is a lever set watch, so you're going to pull the lever out and set the time. And what we're doing here is I'm checking the hour hand to make sure that it's not going to interfere with the second hand, that there's enough clearance. If it's too high, you can lower it a little bit. If it's too low, you can raise it so that it doesn't interfere with the second hand. But you want to have enough clearance in there for both the hour hand and the minute hand, as well as no interference with the second hand's operation. I typically set my watches to 9 o'clock. So there's what I did. I aimed the hour hand at the 9 position, and I'm putting the minute hand, which I'll set aim towards 12 o'clock. And that way I can see that I'm aligned properly at the 9 o'clock position. Once that's done and the hands are set on, I'll reset the time and make sure that the hands still have no interference with each other, and then we can set the correct time. So with the lever out, I'm setting the watch, and I'm just turning everything to make sure that there's no interference between the hour hand and the minute hand, and that there's enough height in between the two. Once that's done, I'll just give it a little wind and let it run for a little bit. So that's the procedure for changing just the mainspring in an Illinois Bunn Special. Several watches have the same procedure, but I'm just using the Illinois Bunn Special as an example because I had it. If you like this video, guys, give it a thumbs up. And if you can, share it with anybody you know who might be interested. And if you want some more information on this procedure, please go to our website at www.myjewelrybench.com. And under Watch Repair, you'll see this listed under the blogs. And you can take a look at the written procedures for doing this. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you want to see more of these, please subscribe. Subscribe now. And you can also support us on Patreon. The link is below. Hope you enjoyed this. Have a wonderful day. Take care.